can love you better, yeah.
Can't love you like I do, no. Ain't nobody love you better than me, better than me.
You're listening to Real Love with Lonnie and Cara podcast. Real life, real love, and real talk. Welcome your hosts, Lonnie and Cara Barker.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Real Love with Lonnie and Cara. We're so grateful to have this opportunity to spend this time with you, just having dialogue. We are in spring. Spring has sprung. It's a new season, and we're so elated to be able to just share our perspective on love, marriage, and life.
Yeah, that's good.
And so we're just grateful that you guys are here with us. So, as usual, we would like to give a shout out to our sponsor, the Skin Deep and the End. For those of you who are in a relationship, dating, boyfriend, girlfriend, fiancés, married folks, this right here is a blessing, will be a blessing to your marriage and relationship, because it is a card game that has a lot of different conversation starters. It also allows you to learn things about your partner that you probably would not have known. And so, per usual, we're going to start the show by we'll do one each.
One each.
All right?
Got it.
So I'm going to let you choose one and I'll choose one.
Okay.
You ask the question.
I'm going to try to pick something from the bottom this time.
Okay.
See if I can get it going. Okay.
All right. And then I'll choose one as well.
Okay.
All right. You want to go first?
Sure.
Okay. Let's go.
Okay. First, the question I have is, and this is kind of focusing on, I guess, work relationships, kind of. What about my relationship to work would you like to change?
What? I didn't even say anything yet.
Because I know where you're going to go.
You don't know where I'm going to go?
Okay, go ahead.
What? Okay, specifically, what would I like?
What about my relationship to work would you like to change?
No,
you could take it any direction.
Okay. Can I give my answer?
Go ahead.
I would like for you to know when to switch the on and off switch and leave it where it's switched to. When it's time to be off, be off.
Okay.
When it's time to be on, be on.
So give it an example.
Okay, so you're setting yourself up for failure right now. So
no, I'm setting myself up for specific feedback to make specific changes.
When you are at work, be at work. Whenever you with me, don't be at work.
Okay.
That's as simple as I can make it.
Okay, that's good.
All right. Now you answer the same question.
What about my relationship to work would you like to change? Well, how things are set up in our household is your studio is literally in the house. Okay. So I would say what I'd like for you to change is kind of similar, is even though you make it every effort to start your mornings extremely early so it's not interrupting, I think once you get locked in, and it's hard to step away. Because I could tell you're like, okay, you're locked in, door closed, music going, headphones on, and you're in a creative space. So it's maybe more having boundaries.
No rebuttal for me.
Okay.
My question is, where do you think I might fail you? Where do you think I might fail you?
Ooh. Where do I think you might fail me?
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely do not know. I don't have a response.
Okay.
Maybe that's a good thing. I feel like you're reliable, you're dependable. When we've had situations where I needed you, you showed up. You were there. So I honestly can't think of anything where you might fail me.
Okay. All right. So when I think of my answer to the question, where do I think you might fail me? This may be an extreme, but I'm just trying to think of areas. Cause yeah, like you said, I mean, you too, when the rubber meets the road, I find you to be reliable. But if it came down to something where I need you to help save my life.
What?
You might be like, he's got good life insurance.
Wow.
Okay, no, I'm joking. I'm joking.
I'm
joking. I'm just kidding. But no, when it comes to, if it really came down to a situation where it was like something happening and it's like dangerous and violent, I don't think you'll put up a fight. I think you'll just give in. No, I'm kind of joking, but I'm kind of not joking. That's where where I know you need me in a situation like if it goes down.
Okay, that's fair.
I mean, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But other than that, no, I don't think there's an area that I think you might fail me.
My scaredy scale is kind of
You can't even watch a scary movie, so I know if it was a scary situation in real life that happened, I might as well just take whatever you're gonna take, man. Let's get. I'll put up a fight, but if it came down to where I'm incapacitated, tied up, zip tied or whatever, nah, she ain't finna.
Man, you never know. I could come in
I would be very surprised.
Well,
but it shouldn't be a situation where if I've made a decision or done something that it caused you to be in that situation, then I failed.
Oh, okay.
All right,
Fair
cool.
enough.
So yeah, that's how you play the and.
Those are always fun.
Yeah, they are.
All right, they're so random too.
Yeah,
just like I'm sure our topic for today will be.
No, it's not going to be random. It's not going to be a random topic. In fact, the topic today could be fun if you act right.
Oh, goodness. Why do I have to act right?
Cara, because sometimes you don't. And obviously we are being bombarded.
We're being bombarded
with unnecessary guests.
And there they go.
All right, so I think today's topic could kind of be fun. It depends on the direction that it goes. And so, all right, so the reason I wanted to have on our fraternity and sorority attire, our Greek attire, because I really want to talk about our genesis or the origin story.
That's fun.
Okay.
Okay.
For those of you that don't know, Cara and I met in college.
Yep.
On the campus at the University of Oklahoma.
In Norman.
At Dale Hall in zoology class.
Yep. Freshman zoology.
Yes. And so I think we have two conflicting stories of who pursued who.
Oh, here we go.
Or how we started. And so
just
to play it fair, we want to clear the air and let the record be known. And in fact, I want you to share with us your experience on how you met me, when you met me, or where you met me, how things unfolded, and then I'll share my perspective and we'll see how this goes.
Okay. Well, since you already started with us wearing our paraphernalia, our Greek letters, by the time this episode airs, I'll be hitting my 30th anniversary.
Yada, yada. I don't care about all that.
30th anniversary with Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated.
Okay.
So I figure I might as well.
Shameless plug.
Plug.
All right. Okay. Now skip over that now.
Okay. So we did meet freshman year, which was 1995.
Prior to me becoming affiliated with the Greek organization, mind you. So don't try to use that as a scapegoat or as a thing of. I'm just saying. Anyway, go ahead.
Oh my gosh.
Go ahead.
Here we go. But yeah, we did meet in was that really the fall of 95? That's the spring of 95. No, We
we met spring
of 94. No, we met fall of 94. That's when we met.
Okay.
Which I had to think about that. We actually met fall of 94.
Okay.
Because it was we started college in 94.
Yes.
And we met fall semester of 94 because I pledged of spring in 95.
Okay.
I just remember, and you pledged or went over in fall of 95.
Okay.
So I'm trying to think of our timeline there. Anyway, so yes, it was very apparent that he was pursuing me. We were in zoology class, Dale Hall specifically, and it was one of those large classroom settings, probably over 300, 400 people in the classroom. And I was sitting towards the back of the classroom or the hall. And he was back with his buddies or just friends. And I don't know if he felt like he was supposed to be the welcoming committee for freshman orientation. I don't know. But I was literally minding my own business. And he came up to me in the back of the class and was like, hi, introduced himself. My name is yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, my name is this. And it was just kind of like, okay. And I want to say, I think you sat down.
I didn't stand the whole time. Of course I sat down. What are you talking about?
But I didn't invite you to sit down.
You don't have to invite me. We there for class. It was like I was in your space.
You were in the back and you moved yourself towards where I was.
Okay, I'm gonna let you tell your story. Continue.
But anyway, it was just we really didn't have any conversation. We would run into each other every once in a while, whether that be at a party, whether that be at a function or whatever. Mm-hmm. We really didn't connect until probably later in that semester where you were needing apparently we were not doing well in zoology class. Now, obviously I must have been doing better than you because you asked me if I could help, and we decided, okay, we've got semester finals coming up, and we decided to go study in the library together.
Okay.
And then from there on, it was just like random different meetings, but then we finally connected after a party. It was a Greek party.
Okay. Are there any other things you want to mention
That's
before?
That's just the initial contact.
Okay, so
that's just, we're talking about the different stages. That was the initial contact.
Okay.
Our initial connection.
Okay.
Really.
All right.
Your version.
Okay, so we're talking about the initial phase.
We're talking about just the initial, the actual meeting each other.
The initial phase was this. I was a wrestler, so I was an athlete. So I wouldn't go hang out I wouldn't always be on her side of campus and throughout the dorms just hanging out, like most of the guys did. I would be on my side near the Bud Wilkinson where the athletes hung out. So during class, I would come on campus. So I remember walking on campus, minding my own business, and I saw her and her little crew. They thought they were just like the hottest thing on campus. Which okay, I'm gonna let you believe that.
We were.
But truth be told, in the beginning, I thought she was snobby, stuck up. I wasn't even trying to go there with her because she thought she was just. And then when I found out she went to Jinx, I knew this.
Context for the listeners. Not everybody knows what Jinx is.
I didn't ask you for context. I gave you an opportunity. Now we're not gonna do this. I gave you the green light to give your version. Let me give mine.
Okay, whatever.
So, talking about context.
Jinx High School. Just people that may not know what Jinx means, because not every listener is from Oklahoma.
Jinx is in Oklahoma, South Tulsa County, Oklahoma, where the majority of student population, well, the African American population is probably 0.000003%, and she was one of them. And so, but when she came to OU, she got woke and act like she act like she was just the creme de la creme. Snobby. Oh, snobby.
It was not snobby.
Okay, all right. So anyway, so I I was just basically minding my business. So I figured, man, look, I'm in zoology. You know, I believe in community. So I said, hey, let me go ahead and get to know her, just to study, kind of help her out with her studies. You know, and so I said, let's get together, study together. Let's see if we can do something together in the zoology class. I didn't like science. So every time I came to her dorm to study with her, she always had a third wheel. We're not going to say names, which further made me not be interested. But it just, time went on. We was like, oh, cool. So I was just being my true self, still hiding the fact that I'm royalty. I really would kind of dress down. I wouldn't really get too fly, because I didn't really want her to know that I came from, means, resources, royalty. So I would dress like, before she give y'all her version, I would on purpose dress like, sweatpants, t-shirt, flip-flops, whatever, on purpose, just because I didn't really want to reveal too much. And so we got to know each other, went to a party or two. And I think what it was, whenever I started hanging out with a certain group of young men from the first, oldest, coldest, and boldest fraternity.
Absolutely not.
When I was strolling, she started looking at me different. And so it was at one party, we made eye contact, and I was like, hey, why are you looking at me like that? I was like, I'm minding my own business. And so she was like, hey, how, people do when they want to get to know you. She did that little thing. And so we kind of made eye contact, and like I said, I'm minding my own business, doing my thing. So one thing led to another. I said, okay, I'll dance with you. We danced, One thing led to another.
But you got to give a timeline, because that wasn't until like fall of the next year. We met spring of 94.
All right, okay. But okay, let's go ahead and fast forward. Fast forward, to make a long story short. October 1995. In fact, it was October, I want to say the 16th. October 16th, because it was the day of the Million Man March. I'll never forget it. I was in my apartment off campus, Springfield Apartments in Norman. And I said, hey, listen, the Million Man March is coming up tomorrow. I'm going to be locked in my apartment. I'm not going to be using the phone. I literally shut everything down. And I said, you're not going to hear from me, because I wanted to be tuned in, because if for some reason during that time of my life, there was a monumental time, something that historic that never happened. And so it was after that I really was doing some self-reflection. I had just, been out of relationships and ended relationships, and made in my mind, hey man, the next relationship I get, I'm taking it serious, and I'm going to make it official. So that's when we really made it official. October of 95.
Yeah.
We then started dating. Everybody knew Lonnie and Cara, they are a thing. Everywhere I went, she went. We ended up being in the same places at the same time all the time. Then we made it official. Then fast forward to summer of 90. Summer of 96. I had made up in my mind, man, look, I'm done with OU. I'm transferring to Langston University. I'm going to transfer to Langston because I want to go to a HBCU and I want to start all over. Wasn't really enjoying my experience there at OU. Wasn't doing too good academically. And man, I just made in my mind, I'm transferring to Langston. So I started the transfer process, transferred my transcript, got all that, transferred to Langston for the summer. Started there because I needed to get my college algebra requirement. Never been good at math. And so I signed up for college algebra to go Langston summertime. Miss Showalter was my instructor. I was living in Bro Hall. For those of you Langston Lions, Bro Hall was considered pretty much the hood dorms for the boy dormitory. I was there in the summertime. There was nothing there. So I was at rock bottom. I didn't have nothing. I didn't have money for books. I didn't have a meal plan. So Doc Holloway, who was my fraternity brother at the time, he hooked me up with a meal plan so I could go to the cafe during the week, and on the weekends it was closed. So I was like struggling. So Cara and I were kind of like off and on. But then she started her internship there in State Farm for the summer. I remember calling her, saying, "Hey, listen, won't you come see me for the weekend?" I didn't know for sure she was going to come or not, but she came. And it was during that weekend, when I tell you I didn't have comforter, I didn't have sheets for my bed. I barely had like toiletries. Kara came, she had a little job, so she had a little change. So she took me, we went to Walmart in Guthrie. Yeah. She hooked your boy up with sheets, toiletries, the bare necessities. And I felt bad, but at the same time, I was like, man, she hooked your boy up. And that right there, for me, was the turning point. Because when I had nothing, nobody else was coming to help me out. And I was like down. I mean, I didn't have a job. I had a van that was like
busted and disgusted.
Terrible. And it was at that point for me that I knew without a shadow of doubt, man, she held me down when I had nothing, zero, zilch. I'm talking like nothing, y'all. And that was, to me, that was the pivotal point in my life where I felt like, man, look, this is the girl that's here for me. She deserves all of me. Aww. And so I made a promise to myself at that moment that I said, man, this is it. And that summer, you had a family reunion in Tulsa.
Yeah.
I was invited to the family reunion because Carl introduced me to her family, her extended family. And so we went to church service that Sunday. I didn't have a ring. I didn't have an idea that I was going to propose. I had no idea that I was going to do this. So I went down to the front of the service, got down on my knee.
Star Baptist Church.
Yeah, got down on my knee. Like I said, no ring. I hadn't talked to her father. Did it all wrong.
Yeah.
I proposed at that moment, and I said, Cara, will you marry me?
In front of the church.
The whole church.
Where they thought it was like he was going down there for prayer.
They thought I was going down there for prayer, for
intercession or rededication.
Or what do they call it when you need a church for home away from church? There's a word for it.
I don't know.
Something care. I don't know. I don't know. It's not even a thing anymore.
Right.
But
it was not to be proposing. That was not what we thought.
And so I proposed, and we got married.
Made church history.
4 months later, because that was July of 96. We got married November 23rd, 1996. Now keep in mind, I didn't have a ring.
Yeah.
I didn't even have a solid job at the time.
No, didn't have nothing.
I transferred back to OU, back to normal. We got our first apartment. We got married, had a baby, and then the rest, as they say,
is history.
Is history.
Yeah. So lots of little pieces in there, from when we first met to meeting on the campus of a university. All of that. It was just a lot of firsts for us, but I think it goes back to the core that I think it brings up is, if something was to happen, could you rely on me? Could you rely? And I think that to me is whatever that origin story is of your relationship. You got to go back to the very fundamental layer of like, when everything was said and done, will you be there? Can I rely on you? Do you have my back? If we were doing, I think one of the episodes we talk about like a free fall. If I were to just fall back freely, would you catch me?
Well, absolutely, I would. And that's something that I really want you to be confident in. Not because that's just what a man is supposed to do, but because whenever I said I do, I meant it. Whenever we said we do, I meant it. It wasn't a fair weather decision. It wasn't a conditional decision. I said it and I meant it. And hopefully along the way I have proven that I am in it for the long haul. Now, let's go ahead and just look at it from a hindsight perspective. Now, obviously, in the beginning, we were both learning each other,
right?
Which every couple goes through that learning each other phase, because sometimes in the beginning you give your representative. Now, the reason the reason I set it up the way I set it up, because I know she has a different context of how I was when she first met me. Okay.
He was shy. He was so jive.
I was not jive.
He was jive. He was so jive. First of all, he said he was royalty. He was not royalty. He came from a small rural town in Oklahoma called Muskogee, Oklahoma, which probably at that time maybe had 30,000 people. He was not royalty. He then said that he was from New York and
because I didn't want her to know. I didn't want her to know the real deal because I didn't want her.
So he was trying to be Prince Akeem, and he was not Prince Akeem, nor was he Superman, nor Clark Kent or whomever.
And
he was him.
I wasn't trying to be. I was just basically. I didn't want you to. Sometimes. Let me go ahead and just put it like this.
He tried to, and then he left out the part where when it was during the school year, he did meet my parents, or he came up with, it was some friends of ours. We drove up to Tulsa from Norman, and he was like obnoxious. I was like, what is wrong with you? Because it was just, I think he was just so nervous, and he wasn't expecting, because he makes fun, it's like I was a snob or whatever. I came from South Tulsa, so he'd never been to my house. He'd never been to where I grew up. So when we went to my house to meet my parents, it was actually we were going after church. We went to go to eat, and he was like just doing the most. I'm like, what is wrong with you? I'm like, just calm down. You don't have to be nervous. He literally was nervous, okay, and he was being the class.
If that's
clown.
what you want to say, I was not nervous. I was just nervous. Being me. I wanted to show your folks, who I am and how I was. Okay, all right. Well, since we blasting folks, let's talk.
Blasting.
Okay.
I was just being honest.
Okay, let me share my honesty. What will happen when I took you to Muskogee the first time with me? My grandma sniffed you out and told me you was fast because you had on them short dresses. Where's the lie?
I was fast.
Well, she implied.
She never said that.
Okay, she implied.
She never said that.
Right. Okay, so here's what happened.
And that was your great grandmother. Get it right.
It was still my big mama. My great grandmother who birthed my grandma so she put him on the map. So we were getting ready to take Big Mama home because we was at my grandma's house. We were getting ready to take Big Mama home, and Cara was being respectful. I think you just we're gonna let her sit in the front.
Yeah, I was thinking, well, okay. Does she want to sit?
Of course.
No. No, I think it was, I was trying to open up I don't know if it was in the front or the back. I don't know. Either way, okay. I was trying to be respectful, and she shooed me with her cane. Yeah,
and all I know is she said to me, and I say verbatim, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Now, my grandma called me Dee Dee. She said, Dee Dee, you gonna let her wear them short dresses?
Right. Keep in mind, my dress was past my knee.
All I know is Big Mama, she been here before. She know the game. So
she's been here before. Everybody's been here before.
I'm just saying. She said, you gonna let her wear them short dresses? And I didn't know what to say. So that gave me indication.
You didn't say nothing.
That gave me indication. Okay, Cara might be fast.
What?
So she wearing short dresses.
Okay.
That's the first impression my family got of her.
And that is why he asked me to marry him. Okay.
But my mama on the other hand, and
your grandmother.
Okay, cool.
Your grandmother and your mother.
Okay,
it was just your great grandmother.
Yes. So
may she rest in peace.
They all three of the most important matriarchal motherly people in my life got to meet Cara. In fact, they met you all at the same time initially, but you spent more time with my mama than any of them.
Yeah.
So, they gave me the nod of approval.
Yeah.
They said, all right, cool. Nod of approval. That's all I needed. And so when Cara came to Muskogee, she got to see where I came from,
Yeah.
She realized that, hey, look, what you see is what you get.
Which I already knew he wasn't royalty.
Okay, but
I mean, come on now. He wasn't royalty. He tried to be like that. And when you get to the city, okay, ain't no royalty here. At that.
What I'm not going to do is allow you to disrespect my city.
There were no royalties.
Yeah, I ain't gonna let you disrespect my city right now. I'll pull up. I'll unplug all these cameras and these microphones.
Okay, pull them up.
Anyway, Jinx, okay? I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna let it go.
Anyway,
All right.
so our origin stories.
The origin story is we come from two, and I say this before, we come from two different blocks, two different polar opposites.
Yeah.
But we both have learned to mesh together well.
Mm-hmm.
We both complement each other. Now, in the beginning, Cara would come to my hometown. My brothers would clown her because that's just like the way of, getting to know her. They would just roast her, and then she would feel sad, and because she didn't grow up around that.
I didn't have brothers.
Well, okay, but even at your high school, y'all did y'all roast each other at high school? That was so fun for us.
That's called bullying.
Okay, fine, whatever you call it, whatever. We would at the high school, in my high school, we would sit around the cafeteria and nobody was off limits. I'm talking, it was free fire. We would roast each other. That was just the way it was. Even for the guys that like the girls, they would roast them. And so that's the culture we were around growing up. Cara wasn't used to that. So my brothers would roast Cara, say stuff. I remember one time, Cara had this hairstyle. I guess that was the hairstyle I was in.
It wasn't.
And Ryan, my older brother, said she looked like Show Enough. I laughed so hard. It was so fun. But what I should have done was I should have said, "Hey, that's not very nice."
He
but
supported
I
me.
laughed.
He had my back. There goes for the free fall.
I laughed so hard. It was so funny. But after a while, I gotta say, Cara, you did build up the resistance, and then she had the nerve to start clapping back. I said, okay.
So did I get my street cred then?
Yeah, you got your street cred. So then she started getting her lick back, and so then they start backing off. So now they don't roast her as much when they see her. But Cara is now just like, it's almost like people now think that she's from Muskogee because she's been around me so long when we go there.
Yeah.
But the funny thing about it is when we first met each other, like I said, didn't like each other at all. We grew into liking each other. And then now I would say we're a good team. We're a good team.
We are a good team.
And so the funny thing about it is, and we had an opportunity to go back to Norman. Was it last year? Or the year before last? Remember we had a chance to go into the actual Walker Tower.
That was last year.
Yeah, okay. Last year we had a chance to go to Walker Tower, go up to the floor of her dorm was on.
Actually, I think that was 2 years ago. Last year we went back to Dale Hall, and we were like around Dale Hall, went inside. But the year before, so it's like 2 years now.
Okay.
But
so we had a chance to go back, revisit where it all started, and it was kind of a real cool, nostalgic, sentimental moment. And we've come full circle. And so, but during our college time, and you can tell me what your perspective on it is. During our time in college, it was the absolute brokest I have ever been. When I mean brokest, I'm talking about we would stretch a dollar so much.
Yeah.
We didn't have a lot of resources. We didn't have means. We didn't have anything. But I think, and you can tell me what you think, I think it was in those moments of us having nothing where we relied on each other, and we didn't come from, when we met, it wasn't like I tried to use money to pursue you, because I didn't have none.
Right.
I didn't have any at all.
Yeah.
And so during our time while we were living in Norman, in college, in apartments, when I tell you we came from like nothing, I think it was in those moments of having little to no resources that we learned to appreciate those times, so that now where we are and what we've experienced together, we can appreciate it a lot more.
Yeah, I think we had probably some of our best dates when we didn't have much because
Yeah.
we had to be really creative to figure out what we're going to do. So it didn't take a lot of, extra money or whatever.
Right.
I think other times where I feel like we grew, so not just early on when it was just us, as we started to grow and, grow as a couple, there was different times in our marriage where we lived far away from family. So early on, we didn't have anything, right?
Yeah.
Probably 5 years into the marriage we moved to another location.
Yeah.
And we didn't have anybody. It was just us. And so I think those critical foundational things, when you really are able to lean into the relationship, allows you to build that level of resiliency. So when you do get other things, you have a good foundation. And so I think that is just an example of that Genesis story. Our Genesis story started with nothing. We had nothing. We literally didn't have a lot, but we had each other.
Yeah.
We were resourceful. We didn't have anything to really reference to say, oh, we had this before, because once we became one, it was like, it didn't matter if my family had maybe a little bit more resources than what you came from, because now we were together. This was our family.
Right.
And we were creating our own family. I think the other thing to me where it's just an example of when I think about, can I depend on you? I think those earlier years provided that reassurance, but also gave us our framework. And that framework that we created was so critical early on. Is that framework was, we're going to depend on each other. We're going to be reliable. We'll be respectful. We're going to build this together. And so when you're in a relationship where you feel like you are mutually building something together, you're mutually invested in it as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think another thing too is coming from those early stages in our marriage where we had the cutoff notices.
Yeah.
We had the hey, I'm not sure how we're gonna make ends meet moments. We had those moments where, one moment in particular that sticks out, that really keeps me humble is, I remember a time we were living in Broken Arrow. It was our first house that we had. And I was working in ministry full time. I was only making like $19,000.
Maybe not even that, probably.
Yeah, that's before taxes. And so things were tight. And so I remember one time we had our water was cut off.
Yeah.
And so what I would do is I would get one of those big old water jugs, I think like from the water jug,
Like the water tanks.
Yeah. And I would
Yeah.
and I would sneak across the yard to our neighbor's house, go to the side of their house and turn on the faucet and fill that thing up. Bring that water jug home, and we would use that water, boil it for cooking, and also to bathe and to wash up our daughter, Marika. At the time, we had just one kid at the time, and that was for me. That wasn't new to me, but it was new to Cara because we grew up in two different backgrounds.
Yeah.
I came from humble beginnings. Of course, I know what it's like to not have lights and sometimes have water cut off. So I knew how to survive. And so it was new to Cara. She didn't like it. And, there was a time where I felt like, man, I just hope you don't be disrespectful to me and then go to your parents and ask them for help. I felt like that would be the ultimate form of disrespect because I'm the man of the house. I got to find a way for us. And so wrestling with that.
And I didn't.
Wrestling with that, yes, and I appreciate that. Wrestling with that really gave me the drive, the grind, and the mindset of this will never be our norm ever again. I will do whatever I got to do so that by the time our kids are older, they will have no memory of this. They will never, ever have to want for anything. They will never have to experience lack or having lights out, utilities off, eviction notices, none of that. And so I think that to me was a motivating factor. And so even now at where we are now, almost 29 years into marriage, we've moved from Oklahoma to Missouri to Illinois. Now we're in Texas. Sometimes those early humble beginning moments are sometimes an impetus for me to do what's necessary to lay the foundation so that A, you and I don't have to go back to those times, and then B, to make sure that my kids will never experience that again. And so, it's very humbling to really think about how good God has been to us. And when we look back, and some people are in disbelief whenever we tell them where we came from, and it's all accredited to God, because there's no doubt about it that He provided for us all those years,
provided and protected us.
When
you think about it, I mean, we were early 20s. We got married in our early 20s, 2021, and so had Marika at 21 and 22. So we literally didn't have much at all. And we were still in close proximity to family. So whether that be 30 minutes away from your family, maybe 15 minutes or 10 to 15 minutes from my family. And there was times too where early in the marriage where we were in between places. And so we stayed at my parents' house for almost like 6 months.
Yeah, that's right.
Until we got into our first house. And it reminded me of one, it's important to have community. It's important to have connection. At the end of the day, we knew our family, we were building our family. But you just can't be prideful there's sometimes you do need help. Sometimes you do need help. And so you don't want to have those, I feel for the couples that have really difficult relationships with family members where they can't, when something is to happen and you need their help and you can't really rely upon them. But the thing that I learned during those seasons in that Genesis space, or that are part of our Genesis story, is God's faithfulness and God's faithfulness to provide, God's faithfulness to protect us, God's faithfulness to lead us. I also learned in our early beginning stories of just how much I valued our friendship. And so I always think about that, and we talk to couples a lot, is that I almost put more value and significance on the friendship part than the actual husband and wife part. Why I say that is it's important that you like the person. You gotta like them, love them, enjoy being with them. And so for our story, because we started so young at 20, we've gone through the 20s and the 30s, and now we're in the 40s together, where we've experienced a lot of life events together, where they were either life events that were truly first time ever experienced life events. And so those memory things of, man, I can't imagine of, things that you would experience, you would want to experience that with your best friend or someone that you're really close to, those memories, we had that. So when we talk about college, we literally are talking about things where we both were there. So it's not like, oh, well, when I was in college, what was your college experience? No, we had that experience together. When you talk about experiencing different places and trips and moving to different locations, we've had those experiences together. We talk about buying our first house, building our first house. We had those experiences together. So there was a lot of Genesis origin stories within our marriage. But I think the main core of all of that is likability. I absolutely like you. And I'm excited to be able to experience those things with you.
Yeah, I think that's so important too, because I see a lot of couples who are constantly at odds with each other.
Just don't like each other.
They don't cuddle, they don't hold hands, and I'm like, man, I feel sorry for them. Because
not
man, look,
enjoyable. It's like, what is the world?
Exactly.
Why?
For whatever reason, and my heart goes out to them, because I would hate to be in a marriage with somebody that I can't share my wins with, share my funny moments with, share something that happened today that was funny, but because of attitude, I ain't telling her nothing. I can't imagine being in a marriage like that where you're not just able to just be free and be fun and just to enjoy each other. And so my encouragement to that young couple who really feels like things are not going to get better. You may be experiencing financial hardship right now. You may be in a situation where you may be living with other family members and you feel like this is going to be it. My encouragement to you is it gets greater later. You got to be hopeful enough and trust God enough that where you are is only for a season. And I know that from firsthand experience. And just be faithful over the little that you have. That's one thing that I think that God has really blessed us is our faithfulness. In the humble beginnings that we had, we were good stewards over the little bit that we had. What little bit that we had, we took care of it. We appreciated the hoopties that we had, the cars that were jacked up. Then we upgraded. We got better. The smaller home that we had, we made sure it was clean. We took care of it.
Yeah.
God trusted us with the little bit, so he made us rulers over much. And it just went from glory to glory. And so be faithful of what you have. Where you are right now, be faithful over that early Genesis stage of your marriage right now. And if you're faithful over a few things, God will make you ruler over many. And so our story is our story. Your story is your story. But one thing I do know without a shadow of a doubt, God keeps those who want to be kept. And I say this all the time, and I'll say it now. It will work if you work it. Trouble don't last always. You may be going through a serious storm right now. You may be experiencing hardship. You may not be seeing eye to eye. But I'm telling you right now, whenever you are able to lay differences aside, I always tell people this, and we're getting ready to wrap up. A good marriage is comprised of two good forgivers. Cara and I, we have learned over the years to forgive one another. And when you forgive quicker, it's better. But you cannot have a strong marriage if you are weak in the area of forgiving. Learn to forgive one another, give grace to one another, and just always be willing to reconcile. What do you say?
And I would say if you are in a stage where you just can't remember your origin story or your Genesis story because you had so many other chapters that have happened since Genesis, you're all the way, if you think about just of an analogy of like the Bible, you're all the way like in, I don't know, 1 Peter. You just have passed all the way and you can't figure out how to get back to where it all began. Go back to the small things. Remember, go back to the small memories of the milestones, right? And if you can't get to the milestones, go back to when you first started, when you first met. Where was that level of excitement there? Where was the joy and contentment there? Where was the newness and the rediscovery there? Go back and try to figure out that space. Go use those memory stones and go back to the very beginning and figure out, okay, where throughout did we lose our spark? Where did we lose our joy? And let's try to figure out how to rekindle that. So practical. How do you rekindle that? Well, first you start with just remembering when you had it. You got to remember when you had it and where did you lose it and how did you lose it, right? The other thing in that practical space is try to remind yourself as a couple the small moments of joy, the small moments of memories, the small moments of happiness, and rekindle that. Whether it big or small, be really intentional. So if you lost your spark or you lost the flame, you've got to be really intentional of going back to try to rekindle it again. If it's worth it, you're going to work it.
That's right. Just find your why. There's a reason you two, husband, wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever you are, there's a reason you two are together.
Yeah.
And so just continue to Allow God to lead you. Swallow your pride. Like I said, it will work if you work it. So thank y'all for joining us. We're going to wrap it up. We'll see y'all next time.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to Real Love with Lonnie and Cara. For more information, visit our website at realationships.net.